Welcome back, everybody. In today's video, I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the state of Jobava London and to mention a pretty interesting phenomenon that I noticed recently. So, in my opinion, after experimenting with most of the possible white openings and having completed multiple speedruns, I do genuinely believe that this is the best thing that you can play if you want to increase your rating from, let's say, around 1000 elo all the way up to 2000, simply because of how much it narrows down Black's options, leading to much less opening knowledge required compared to any other normal main lines. But wait a second. What do you mean with 1000 to 2000 only? Are you somehow supporting a bad opening? Now, if you've been following along, you may have noticed that recently we started to get up to a pretty high rating onto the speedrun account. We managed to get ourselves all the way to 2200. And honestly, I'm starting to feel that some of these games are actually way easier to win than what we basically had in the past against many 1800s, which is actually pretty strange. Like, how on earth can opponents that are 400 points stronger play much worse, or let's say at least feel easier to play against? Buckle down, because here's my hypothesis. So, when you get to play against stronger players on a regular basis, despite the fact that in the grand scheme of things, they do understand the game better, especially while dealing with the Jobava London, they become much more predictable, which makes it easier for us to use the prior game knowledge. And what I mean with that is it can be much easier to win against technically more correct chess than to refute some of the weird nonsense that a lot of the 1800s tend to do, which, in my opinion, makes the whole Jobava London incredibly overpowered. But I know what you may be thinking. Okay, Alex Banzea, you're 6 foot tall, you've got unmatched perspicacity. Of course, none of these bastards can hold the game against you. Alright, I get it. I am indeed a master level player, and I could perhaps beat a bunch of these guys by playing any kind of random nonsense to the point where the opening may not matter that much. However, I think it really comes down to the level of which I was able to blueprint this opening to the point where it genuinely feels easy and accessible to anybody to beat pretty strong players. So that is going to be up to you to decide in this video, and yeah, let's see how far we can push it. Right, everybody, we're yeah, back with the games, facing stronger and stronger opponents, it seems. Getting ourselves a nice 2200 from India. Well, he appears to be going for the so-called Slav setup against the Jobava. And yeah, we're just going to play bishop f4. Additionally, if you really want to, e4 would be transposing into the Caro-Kann. But we're never really going to do that. Okay. That's something that will never happen. Okay. And black plays bishop to f5. This is actually a very interesting position already. So black decides to play with the light square bishop outside the pawn chain, having he chosen the other strategy to play with a locked bishop. The development is e3, bishop d3, knight f3, castle, and eventually look for the e4 break. But on bishop to f5, whenever they try to get bishop outside the pawn chain, we will try to storm them on the king side. And here's the catch. On knight f6, yeah, this is when you see these two pieces, the storm is gonna come in full speed. In low elo games, it's actually quite often that black players delay the move knight f6 and go e6, where the main problem with that is you can actually expand in the center with e4. Notice that by developing the knight, that's fighting for the square, this is not a playable move. It's simply losing a pawn. So yeah, gonna be going for g4 instead. Just wanted to add a little bit of a nuance in there. I'm sure we're gonna get to play those positions quite a lot when I'm gonna be restarting the speed run once the Jobava course will be ready. Okay, bishop g6. I'm gonna do h4, threatening to trap the bish and expecting h6 or h5. In fact, yeah, h5 is the best move in the position. If he plays h6, very similar development to what we'll see, e3, bishop d3, knight d2, and typical ideas that we're going to see in the upcoming moves. So Rajat goes knight d7. In this position, also knight g8 could be a playable move with idea to play e6 and then reroute the knight to e7. But it's a very rare move, especially below 2500, even above that, to be honest. But it's playable. So he goes knight d7. Now, I'm going to be going for the universal approach. I'm going to play e3. That is the simplest by far. However, in this specific position, because we've driven away the knight from fighting for the center, e4 is playable move. But yeah, I'm just going to play very simple. We're just going to go for a setup-based opening. Really, no fury. You just need to remember e3, bishop d3, take with the queen. Preparing to long castle, and then go knight e2. So let's see what my opponent's going to do. He takes, and we're taking with the queen. And wow, okay, very good opening by my opponent. He's playing g6. So it's already important that in this structure with the pawn, with the black pawn on h5, when they force us to push, you want to be mindful about the fact that we could potentially play g6, messing up with their king. So very good decision by my opponent to not allow that. I'm going to develop with knight e2 and then castle. Could have also started with long castle right away, but yeah, generally I just like to delay that for a bit. And yeah, expecting either bishop g7, knight b6. It's a common move where I always forget to play bishop e5. Knight b6 is actually a common mistake there because it allows bishop e5. So he should do bishop g7 or, okay, a6. Yeah, a6, not a good move. And I'll explain you why this is very logical. I totally understand what he's trying to do, but it's a common way for black to lose in 20 moves. So point is, with a move like a6, this is a signal that my opponent wanted to break with c5, which is logical, right? You always want to go for a pawn break. But he was a little bit afraid of allowing the Excalibur knight after knight b5, threatening to fork, which would have forced knight a6, and then we play the move c3. And all of a sudden, black's pieces are really cramped. So he goes a6, thinking that he has all the time in the world to break with c5, but we're gonna castle. And when c5 happens, we're gonna have a very strong move that I'm gonna ask you to pause the video and try to find on yourself or on your own. Bad English, sorry. Okay. Bishop g7 could also be played, but really expecting somebody that goes a6 to go c5 next move. I mean, what do I know? b5 is possible, but yeah. Okay, he plays bishop g7. So this is actually the lesser evil for my opponent. c5 is logical, but would have been a very bad move, which, yeah, you can try to punish by pausing the video. Now, assuming you're a good student and you did, the key idea is that, okay, how do you punish king that's stuck in the middle? Okay, look at black's king. You're gonna open up the center. Blast open the center, move e4. Threatening to take on d5, and after d4, I think even queen takes on e4 is best. Attacking b7, creating a pin along the e file. So already knight d5 or pawn to d5 can be crashing. But he went bishop g7. Okay, I'm gonna go e4 regardless. It's a very nice move, taking any active options, because now he has to worry about the pressure on d5. So this e4 move pretty much is keeping these pawns on their position. And now I'm gonna use an idea that I did like almost 100 of times, which is, yeah, I think I'm gonna go king b1, bishop c1. Also could be interesting to throw in bishop d6 and then play e5, but I usually don't do that. So I'm just gonna do king b1. I'm not gonna get out of my comfort zone. You guys think I'll stop playing video games and hit the gym one day? That's bold of you to assume. If you were a true fan, you knew that I never go to the gym, but I prefer to run instead. Okay, that's a little bit unrelated to the position, but expecting my opponent to play either knight b6 or pawn to b5. But the problem with this knight b6 move is that, okay, I mean, I get it. He is just trying to finish development like, you know, a normal human being, but it's very slow. And yeah, do I start bishop c1? It's a nice little move, nice prophylactic, making the king feel a bit safer, making sure we don't get hit by e5 with a tempo. Right, okay, what do I play? I'm just gonna do bishop c1. Okay, this is how I always play it. I'm just gonna be going for it. And okay, this position is in fact very instructive because it's easily the type of structure where you can get stuck as white. Okay, well, what the heck are we playing for? Like, are we gonna go e5? Well, go e5, we no longer have a pawn break. Black will play for c5 and their position is suddenly easier to play. And okay, a5, I get it. He wants knight a6, knight b4, but this should be really slow. And in fact, the main way to yeah, break the position would be to sack on h5. That's how you unclog the bathtub. That's how you bring the disco ball to the party, or how you open the window in my room. My room would be a good example. Okay. So he wants this move. I don't think my queen will be in trouble. Like knight e2, knight b4. No, that's actually a little bit annoying. So I'm gonna go knight g3, knight a6, and then a3. Stop knight b4 idea. Because knight b4, I mean, I can probably take and do knight a2, right? I mean, shouldn't be a problem. Okay, going for it. No more overthinking. Knight a6. I just want to be not allow his knights to play ping pong with my queen. That's something that I would not like. Because if the knight comes to b4, you play queen e3, the other guy comes into c4. It's a little bit too much horse activity on this area of the board. And a4 threatening to play a3, I'm not really scared of, and I'm going to play knight e2. Notice that I'm really, well, maybe he doesn't get it, but kind of just preparing to do that. And this is a surprisingly effective positional piece sacrifice. So there is nothing really like a concrete combo that you need to find or some forced mate by white, but it's simply going to be a mate in the long run. So imagine sacrifice on h5, play knight g3, bring the other knight, go pawn to e5, right, like this, and then the knight comes into f6, and he never really has a good way to take on f6 because that will open up the g file. And this is in fact a very powerful idea that, okay, my best twin in this structure that I got is against Croatian Grandmaster, Leon Livajic. He's probably embarrassed till this day that I managed to trick him with that idea, but, you know, the Jobava London is still pretty unexpected. It was a blitz game, nevertheless, but it just shows how much venom there is in these kind of positions where, okay, if you look at it with like a weaker engine, okay, like the Fritz that your grandma used to have, may think that black is slightly better when in reality white has like a winning initiative. But yeah, we'll still have to prove that. So let's see. The only question is on knight a6, am I ready to sack? Or am I gonna be playing knight a6, a3, playing prophylaxis to stop this annoying horse fiesta? So let me calculate again. So there is something that changed because the knight on b4 will no longer be protected when it comes due to his last a4 move. The pawn from a5 was covering that square. So let's say knight a6, we take, we play knight g3, he goes knight b4, and additionally, I could consider a move like maybe queen a3. So the knight has to move, I'd imagine. The problem is that my queen is really perfectly placed in all these sacrifice lines, because after knight g3, knight h5, e5, knight f6, the queen is threatening to infiltrate via h7. So these d3, h7 squares are kind of connected for this idea. So on knight a6, I would probably still play a3, nevertheless. And okay, it might be already a little bit too late for my opponent to try to strike in the center like c5, e5. I might ignore it and go for the idea regardless. And okay, when he takes, I think we have easy decision to take back with a pawn, controlling d5 square. Still knight a6 playing a3, probably. Okay, e5. Wow. So he's trying to do something. Now, I can at the very least just dodge that with d5. But I would really love to just focus on that plan. Can I? I even have queen f3 there. But let's say knight g3, ed, knight h5. It gets a little bit tricky, right? I mean, I could play it slower, but I really want to go for it. So I'm just... I'm going all out on this idea just to show how dangerous this potential sacrifice really is. Maybe I could have, just played d5 and treated this more carefully, but I think this idea is just so good that you can go for it regardless. So Rajat, I mean, credits to him. He's trying to strike for the center. I mean, developing your pieces is generally recommended, but I mean, he's doing his best against the crazy Jobava London. So let's see. Wow. So he does not even take the knight. Well, the problem is that if you don't take the knight, you're kind of dead. Because there's going to be another sacrifice incoming. Check this out. So we eliminate Fianchetto bishop, making his king weaker. And then there is h5, but there is also knight d4, threatening a direct win. Do I want to go for that? I really want to go for that. Okay, I'm going to go for it. So, okay, pause the video. There's a bit of a trick here that, okay, we're already threatening to win on the spot. It's not going to happen because it's impossible for black to make a logical move that allows it. But there's a problem with the spin. So knight f5 or knight e6 wins because his rooks are disconnected and the queen is undefended. And I'm expecting knight d7 as a move. And then I have a very silly but perhaps good idea. I don't know. I used this sacrifice in the past once and I managed to trick my opponent. But it's probably still going to be very strong. Okay, I mean, at this point, simple play works. I'm pretty sure simple play like even queen c3 as a move, creating the spin. So imagine queen c3 already double threat. No, queen c3 just wins. Also knight f5 just wins. Yeah, I wanted to say knight d7. I could have played positional sack. Knight f5 and then take with the pawn. And his king is to expose. But now I think we just do queen c3, yeah. Threatening to double check. And also king j8, I have idea to play for mate. But I also have idea to win queen. It's not exactly which one do I want. Do I want to win queen? It's kind of a bit annoying that my opponent did not accept my sacrifice on h5, but I'll show you after the game that I think we would have normally gotten a fairly easy mating attack. Yeah, I think I'm going for the queen pretty much. I don't know. I'm a capitalist. I think I'm gonna go for the queen. It's all about material. Wait. Okay, I mean, he has no moves to play other than king g8, because putting the king on the h file is just really asking for it. And when he goes to g8, there's two ways to pick up the queen, because both knight moves are threatening mate on g7 while discovery against the queen. So that's gonna be too powerful of a double attack. But the advantage of knight f5 is that after pawn takes, we pick up the queen, then we can recapture on f5 and we're gonna have 3 pawns attacking his king, yeah? Okay, so I'm going for it. Double attack. h5 was, of course, also probably leading to mate, I'd imagine, but just gotta go for the simple win if you see it. This is just too simple. We're gonna have way too many pawns. And okay, he tries to sacrifice, but my little brother, Rajat, is gonna have nightmares with the Jobava after this game. And okay, we're gonna pop in a game review. Got 94. I basically got to make 0 moves by myself this game. But it would have been way more instructive. Let's say, okay, let's analyze with chess.com computer, right? How do we do this? So already this position is kind of in trouble. It didn't manage to like really get any counterplay. And yeah, for instance, having here recaptured, yeah, knight h5, already computer shows white is completely winning. Because there are just too many simple ideas like queen f3, knight f6, some rook onto the g file. And just to show you what is the main issue for black really, like let's say ed, knight h5, and then you try to develop, yeah. Okay, here I'd probably play a move like some rook to g1 with idea to go for knight f6 discovery. And I don't know what he plays. Let's say he tries bishop e5. Okay, queen f3, prepare to bring the queen to the attack, and then some knight coming. And I don't know, what do you really play? Let's say you try some craziness, knight c4. But all of a sudden, yeah, knight f6 check. And the main point is that once the g file opens up, you're gonna be doomed. So imagine black takes. This is gonna be check on the discovery, and then this is gonna be ladder mate. So this is the first key pattern why this attack is so strong. And okay, if he plays king g7 still, any move wins, but also, okay, here you have more like direct queen f5, computer says. But even just like pushing these pawns, it's gonna be so lethal for black. Like imagine you open up these rooks for the attack. I mean, you're sacrificing only a piece to have all these fun. That's like pretty much getting an unlimited credit card at the arcade. You can just pick up as many prizes as you want, and the whole arcade, yeah, will go to bankruptcy. Okay, all right. So, simple pawn storm, h5 structure. So, first important maneuver, king b1, bishop c1. And then the whole idea to get the attack going is to positionally sacrifice the knight on h5. So, yeah, I think with that being said, we can move on to the following game. Quick word from today's sponsor, which is me. I am making this video possible. So in case you were waiting to get any of my chessable courses, they're going to be on a sale for a week. For example, you can see here my Karokan course of the year. You can get the Move Trainer for only $20. Or if you really want to support me and also get videos, you can get the whole package for $100. Links will be in the description. And with that out of the way, let's move on to the following game. Back in the studio after a while. I recently traveled to the Olympiad. But yeah, we're back with the videos. So d4, opponent plays d5, which is already a sign that they are enabling the Jobava London. So knight c3, and okay, very interesting spot already. So move 2, we see bishop landing on f5. Well, normally you can split most of the Jobava London into two categories. Lines with bishop outside the pawn chain, or lines where black will have, yeah, what I like to call this Michael Scofield, light square the prisoner. Now, the thing is, on bishop to f5, one thing that you can use in general to simplify your strategy is whenever this guy lands on f5, you always play the move f3. Or whenever black tries to play with an active light squared bishop, then he's gonna get stormed with the pawns. And he plays the move e6, okay? And this is something that I've been really crafting more recently, as I noticed this is a very common spot, especially around like 1000 up to 1300 elo. This happens a lot. And essentially, what my opponent is doing is that he's delaying the move knight f6. Now, having he played knight f6, fighting for the e4 square, that would actually simply allow us to play the move bishop f4, transpose back into the Jobava London territory, and after e6, we can go for the typical g4, h4. And the point is that with the knight on f6, the pawn storm will be way more efficient, as it will get to target both the f6 knight and also the f5 bishop. So on e6, if you were to do the same thing kind of blindly, go for g4, h4 without the knight having committed to this square, the pawn storm will be a bit of a hit in the desert on the king side. So instead, the antidote is when black delays the move knight f6, that has the drawback that it's no longer fighting for the e4 square. So I recommend, that is my final recommendation, that we're going to be playing for the central storm. And most people take, which is actually a pretty bad move. But my opponent, no, he said no, he's just going to do bishop g6. Okay, bishop g6 is the best move according to the computer. Now, the thing with takes is that, well, you just get to take back with the pawn, play knight f3, bishop d3, and then castle. With a very easy game. Okay, already close to +1 kind of positions, close to winning out of the opening. And I had already many model games that end in 20 moves. So my opening was bishop g6, where I think the easiest way to deal with this is by taking on d5. And then we can still use a rather thematic idea to harass this bishop, which is knight to e2, going into f4, targeting the bishop, and then potentially still throwing in the h-pawn. Just trying to be annoying. So, yeah, let's see. So far, I had a lot of games like this in the lower brackets, as yeah, I did 1000 rapid training games to test my final craft for this. But yeah, not yet with 2000 elo guy in this structure. I have to say this is the highest elo opponent that has played this bishop f5, e6, allowing the central storm. So let's see how is he gonna react to my h4 move. I'm threatening to expand. Not easy for him to deal with the problem, because normally you'd love to push the h-pawn. But pushing the h-pawn actually allows knight takes on g6, which is going to force my opponent to recapture with the f-pawn. And then it's just gonna be having a bit of a, yeah, I mean, with a beat, I mean a really weak pawn on g6. But yeah, it's interesting. He goes queen to c7. So he's saying that, okay, h5, there's gonna be bishop takes on f4 kind of idea. But yeah, I have a choice. I have simple move g3, which is reinforcing the h5 idea. Or I can also think of playing knight c to e2, defending the knight. I think the way to decide which move is best, it's whether, yeah, which move will have a better follow-up against potentially h5. Because, yeah, for instance, if I go g3, h5, I don't really have knight g6 as an option because bishop takes on g3 is going to be an intermezzo. So I'm wondering, can we go knight e2 so that on h5, knight takes on g6 is a more sensible option? Pretty tricky. Not easy to say, but I feel like knight c to e2 is just a sound positional move for this structure, simply because it is opening up ideas to play c3, solidifying the pawn center, getting the connected pawns. What's actually pretty fascinating about this variation is that we can start playing it in the Magnus Carlsen Bone Cloud style with a king f2 type of idea. And then, you know, once the king is on f2, it's actually very safe, and more so the knight can start moving without allowing any checks on g3 anymore. So yeah, definitely confusing the hell out of my opponent with his time management, but I feel like we're getting a good possession. Now, yeah, from my experience, we can meet this bishop f5 with g4. The bishop will go back and then simply h5. And then king f2. And it's a symmetrical position, but white should be better thanks to this kingside expansion, kingside extra space. How do I want to proceed though? I'm thinking to just play g4 right away, because if I'm not doing it, I might actually get hit by h5. So I will no longer have that idea. So start g4, then very much combining it with king f2. And potentially I have a very simple plan of going h5, knight d3. So something like this, knight d3, and then if I end up trading the data squared bishops, then my position is going to be extremely safe. And to do that, I see this bishop f4 kind of plan. Okay, I mean, he plays bishop e6, additionally giving me temptation. I don't really want to take on e6 because by the looks of it, he's going to be in time to play e5 very soon and get rid of the backward pawn. So I'm just going to do king f2. King f2, here again, h5 ideas, c3, knight d3, bishop f4. If I could play all those moves, would be strategically winning position. I'm gonna do h5, yeah, I just don't want to give him that option to like ever harass my pawns. And same plan, c3, knight d3, bishop f4. Yeah, this is actually, okay, I mean, it may seem a little bit complex, what we have done so far, but you have to understand that we're dealing with technically Black's best play on the Central Storm. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, the best lines of our opponent will require a bit of work, but the good news is that, yeah, it's actually, I think maybe like 20% of the games, they will do that. Maybe even less in lower brackets. So, yeah, still instructive to know how to play, but generally this will be leading to much more straightforward games. But yeah, knight f6, am I just getting the desired strategical idea? So exchange his dark square bishop so that these dark squares are not gonna feel vulnerable anymore. I just need to be kind of mindful about the fact that he could go crazy cow. And yeah, I mean, sacrifice is interesting. I don't think it's full compensation, but it was definitely kind of annoying. He's not going for it, and I can probably just take and then play like knight e5 kind of move. Or knight f4 rather. I'm not sure exactly which one is better and why, but I guess it's natural to trade and then play knight f4. Improving the position of the worst placed knight. I kind of love how the knight on d3 is pretty much ideally placed. Fighting for the central squares. We just need to improve this guy. I have choice between knight g3 and knight f4. And from g3 the knight doesn't really have clear goal. And I assume from f4 it's better placed, and it also has knight e6 ideas. Knight on f4 is just better placed because it's more active than on g3. It's simply kind of closer to the middle. It's also kind of preventive in case of g5. There's some en passant, the knight has pressure on g6 as well. We have gotten the dream setup. Okay, it feels a bit shaky with my king, but should be completely safe. Yeah, rook g8, he's definitely preparing g5. I'm gonna go knight e5 now. Improve the position of the other knight further. And I feel like he has to play g6, play it slow, because g5, I may even have the choice to ignore and go with the other knight on d3. But yeah, he plays knight d7. Okay, I have knight d3 to reinforce. Probably what I want to do. Happy to recapture with the knight. Recapturing with a pawn could also be interesting. But I think I'm just gonna keep it simple. Plays rook e8. I don't have an obvious good way to develop my bishop. I can develop my queen to d2 or to the more aggressive a4. I feel like my queen needs to fight for the dark square, so I'm just gonna keep it here. And okay, on f6 I have simple knight trade. No really other move. I mean, knight g6 gives him the tempo. He can take and then do something. So I'm gonna take to keep up the momentum. And yeah, this could be like a really great endgame position to play queen f4. But I'm a little bit concerned about takes and then f5. Now I have king g3 after f5. Should be good. I only have a minute left, which is really the problem. The real problem with my position. But I do have a very pleasant endgame to play. So the idea is that f5 I will have knight d3 to fight for e5 square. I just need to take care of the g pawn first. And I also need to watch out for takes and then rook f8 pin. So yeah, king g3, I feel like good move in general. Safeguarding the pawn, bishop d3, rook e1. And it's actually incredibly easy how black can totally collapse under the squeeze. Imagine I play bishop d3 and then double up rooks on the e file. He's already very close to collapsing. So I'm just gonna do that. f5 still not hitting anything right now. Everything is protected. Just gonna bring the rook. Now all suddenly even tactics with rook e7, knight g6 he has to watch out for. Plus maybe I can just do rook e5 and then double up. Okay, takes. Rook f7. Maybe he'll play, but it's a bit shaky. Yeah, I could think of knight g6 with the idea to knight g6, bishop g6 and win the file. He goes knight c8 instead. I feel like it's a good time to go knight g6 tempo move heading towards the outpost, e5 square. e5 is a very nice square because my opponent cannot fight for it with any of his pawns. So the knight is going to have a very long life over there. And once we got the outpost, it's probably going to be time to switch to the f file. So I can no longer put pressure on the e file, but I can switch. Also, there are all kinds of tactics with takes and bishop f5 that I should be calculating, but I don't have time. So we're just gonna play it like this, and I should also aim for the g5 push, which I'm gonna do. Just slowly trying to get closer to the g pawn. Could also play rook f8 to kind of increase the pressure little by little everywhere. He should maybe play c5 to aim at some active counterplay. I have to say my opponent's playing decent. He didn't play like anything special, but he's playing decent. Maybe c5 is just bad because I take and then I pick up. So maybe b6 with idea c5, but I mean, I'm gonna go g5 and he has to take where I improve my king. Because if he doesn't take and I get to fix the weakness on h6, then I have very simple rook f8, rook h8 idea. And now just g5, and if takes, I think we take with pawn to make even more pressure. Get the pawn closer. Okay, now I think I even take with the king, because king is close to the pawn. And rook f8, rook g8 idea. Once that happens, we win the pawn simply. I missed rook f7. I just rushed because I have no time. I could have played rook f7 and I was winning the pawn right away. Knight f6, maybe I have h6. Because if takes, he drops the knight. Rook g8, knight f6. Now I have to play rook f7. And then takes. Knight f6, h6, I have winning move. Okay, I'm gonna do it even this way. Knight f6, h6 is the key. And knight g3, okay, h6. Okay, 14 seconds. Hopefully I'm gonna be in time, but very tricky. Woof. He's gonna go for it. 12 seconds, I have to try to do my best with the pre-moves. I'm gonna outflank him. Okay, I could have taken the pawn, but I was slow as fuck. Okay, outflanking. He's basically gonna run out of moves on the left side and I get to penetrate. I should also play a4 to stop his king from going to b5. Yeah, I should just do that move soon. Okay, knight d2 to cover c4 square so his king doesn't infiltrate. And then we do the outflanking. Okay, king e5 and then pick up the pawn next. So far it's looking pretty smooth. Like the pre-moves are gonna be kind of easy to do normally. Come on. Five seconds. Okay, 1-1 file. Queen b4 next, win the second. And okay, somehow we manage. Yeah, very tricky. Wow. Um, I mean, I feel like perhaps at times I could have been a little bit more precise, but somehow I think we got a rather instructive squeeze, just showing how to win symmetrical endgame just by having the space advantage on one side. I mean, obviously, probably chess.com report will say that I'm a total idiot and I should quit chess, but let's have a look. Okay, I mean, got 91. Fairly decent for a long game. I have to say, my opponent really didn't play bad at all. Alright, everybody. So far, we've been looking at the lines where black is trying to play with the bishop outside the pawn chain. In the first game, we have seen the kingside pawn storm. In the second game, we have seen the central pawn storm. And now, we're going to be closing the video with a game where black plays with the light square bishop inside the pawn chain, aka Michael Scofield. Welcome back, everybody. We got ourselves a pretty decent opponent, 2200 from Serbia, Ivan Trivunac. And he plays d5, meaning that we're going to have no problem getting the Jobava London. And plays knight f6. We do get the starting position for the opening. Let's see what is going to be his choice for the light squared bishop, because he can play either with the bishop inside the pawn chain, e6, or he could go outside the pawn chain where he's going to get stormed with the pawns, push, and then e3, bishop d3, knight e2, take with the queen, castle long. So that's the plan on the pawn storm. He goes e6, not denying, but delaying that option, where it's important to be flexible. So you want to do e3 first. You don't want to rush with the knight to f3 move, because in the case where he plays bishop f5, if you already committed to the knight move, you can no longer do the pawn storm, okay? It doesn't take a genius to realize that. So he plays e6. Now, you remembered in the pawn storm, yeah, I just showed you a second ago to do this, bishop d3, knight e2, take with the queen, and then castle long. In pawn storm, we castle long. In the lines where he plays bishop inside the pawn chain, we will always castle short. And you want to develop the following way. Move order matters. Bishop d3 first. Yeah, you can do this move order all the time. And then I was about to say knight to f3 with castle. However, you want to take into account also what your opponent is doing, which is the move b6. Now, if you ask yourself what is the idea behind b6, it may seem that he's genuinely just preparing to fianchetto. But this also comes with a second plan, which is c5. And normally, let's say, like having my opponent played c5 on this move, since he would have been threatening to play c4, making this bishop passive, I recommend you to go for the takes. He'll have to take with the bishop, we go knight f3, castle, and then e4 break. And we get good attack thanks to our light squared bishop being more active. Now on b6, the point is, c5, dc5 is no longer such a great answer because he can recapture with the pawn, and he will still have the same c4 annoying idea. And for that reason, if I see that he wants to play c5, I want to be able to play c3 so that I'm going to have a square for the bishop in case it keeps being annoying. Therefore, the move is pretty natural. I'm going to go knight e2. So I want to move the knight away so that I can play c3. And I'm going with the knight on pretty much the most natural square. By elimination, knight a4, it's not a good idea to put it on the rim. Also, knight b1 could be playable to reroute to d2, but in a nutshell, this knight move is way more useful because it also keeps ideas for knight g3, where we could potentially transfer the knight over the king side. Okay, he plays bishop b7. I think I'm gonna go, could do knight f3 or knight g3. to begin with. I don't think it really makes a big difference. And I'm waiting for him to play c5 and then I'm going to play c3. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure we can just delay that move. But yeah, now that he's threatening to trap the bishop, you probably don't want to get your bishop trapped. So c3, it's the whole point why we made this kind of sophisticated maneuver. But it's really not. I mean, once you get into this habit of watching out for your opponent's ideas, once you understand these typical reactions that we have in the Jobava, it is super intuitive. Like, you don't even have to use memory. You just need to understand these little basic rules that I give you in the opening. So, plays bishop e7. Now, with this move on the board, knight h5 could be a bit annoying. So, I can try to save my bishop by playing knight g3, stopping that option, and also knight g3 is perfectly useful move, and I think I'm gonna go for it. Also, h4 is interesting move by the computer in these type of positions. I did a lot of analysis recently, but I think we can just start with knight g3. And yeah, the simple way to do this would be to get in the central e4 break. It's tricky for black whenever like they push c4. On one hand, they get a little bit of space on the queen side, you know, they can start pushing. But the problem is the pawn from c5 no longer pressures the center, meaning that we could get a free roll after e4. Obviously, it doesn't work now, but imagine we could prepare it. However, yeah, I think we need to e4. It's probably not the most efficient, and I'm gonna try to use this very modern idea. Because if he castles, he's gonna be under a lot of pressure. I'd say even under severe pressure. Because yeah, either knight e5 or knight g5 is gonna come, and then I'm gonna have knight h5 ideas with potential rook h3, rook g3, and it's just mate. I'm not exaggerating. It can genuinely be a mate in 20 moves without my opponent making any like obvious mistakes. It is just a very dangerous situation because we have good against bad bishop. Now, he's choosing knight e4, which is yeah, like a typical way to activate. However, yeah, we might be able to go for the thematic and simple knight takes, pawn takes, and then knight d2 double attack. Saying, how are you gonna defend both pawns? Yeah, I think just going for simple play, winning a pawn. So it turns out that we'll just have to start going for simplifications, and yeah. On one hand, my opponent managed to avoid like the immediate mating attack that we could have gotten, that I'm also gonna show you in post-game analysis. But yeah, he is, realistically speaking, down a pawn without really much compensation, as bishop h4 doesn't really work. Queen h5 picks up the bishop by the looks of it. So yeah, he decided to save the e pawn but loses the c pawn, and I'm about to try to infiltrate using the outpost, the juicy e5 square. That is yeah, just a great square for us because black cannot really fight for e5 with any of his pawns. So there is that. Also, knight d6 could be very interesting. Yeah, knight d6 now with a fork and forcing him to give up the dark squared bishop. That is also very sensible. Okay, question. Do I just want to play knight e5, also threatening queen check? Many tempting options. Knight d6 takes. Should I be afraid of like knight b6 kind of ideas? I mean, I'm tempted to say no, but I don't know. Knight e5 would be like the simplest, and I think I'm just gonna go for it. Yeah, maybe that's a bit of a chicken way of playing it. Knight d6 indeed looked very juicy, but I just imagine he's gonna trade. Maybe he's gonna play knight f6, because otherwise I'm gonna check. But yeah, he goes for the castle. I mean, I have bishop b3 attacking the pawn, which I think there's no reason why not to play this move. Suddenly activating the bishop. And still knight e5 I take with the bishop. And yeah, on this, I was wondering whether we can actually take and play queen b3. Yeah, I mean, I could take everything, take on d7, and then play like queen b3. I'm gonna be up a pawn. Still, there will be some, we'll have to show some technique, but I kind of like that. Yeah, okay, going for it. Bishop d5, trade. I kind of want to trade because I feel like it just makes it more straightforward. Like allowing queen b3, knight b6, it's not super obvious to me how to continue. So I'd much rather get rid of the knight so that we still have this a4 undermining move, which could really break the queenside iceberg. Yeah, no, I think I'm very much a fan of queen b3 move, just targeting black's most vulnerable pawn. Why is that the most vulnerable pawn? It cannot be protected by any other pawns. So, goes queen c6. Now, I want to castle, but the issue is that my pawn is going to be hanging, so g3 on one hand is weakening the light squares, but I'm trying to make the argument that, yeah, my opponent's queen is not going to be able to join. It's a little bit too much to hope for. Teleporting the queen to f3, I'm pretty sure that's not gonna be something you can achieve, or at least hopefully. Okay, still though, I wanna be kind of cautious. I don't have to like really castle yet, but I think I can. I mean, really, he cannot do any queen leaves. There's d5 pawn that needs to be babysitted, and next up I'm ready to go a4. And please notice that a4 is gonna be yeah, utterly annoying, especially because there are no rook b8 moves due to this bishop covering the rook path. And okay, he goes queen c4. I really want to trade. If he takes, I'm going to have a protected passed pawn. If he takes with the b pawn, yeah, that's a little bit more tricky, isn't it? So maybe I should just delay it for one move. I think I'm going to go rook fc1. I'm inviting him to take, because then I'm going to get open a file and I can pressure his a pawn, so he shouldn't be taking. And if yeah, he plays random move, I may take, and after b takes, I want to go b4. And it's very important that my c3 pawn is protected by my last move, because after the en passant, I can take back with the a pawn. There is no more rook c3, so yeah, I think we're going for it. Rook takes, okay, I mean, it's a move, but it felt like we should be able to slowly but surely push him back? Question mark? I don't know. I guess time to bring the king. Bring the king, I don't know exactly where. All the way to somewhere. Okay, he goes that move. Interesting. b4 is actually a bit annoying, so I'm just gonna play a3 to stop that. And if he tries to do a5, b4, at least we give our rook some room for counterattack. Yeah, we might actually have to lose the c3 pawn just to get activity. It's actually a bit of a more complicated conversion than I initially expected, but realistically speaking, I think we should still be doing fairly well. There's also h5, a very interesting move that I think I'm going to play simply because he can never touch the pawn. He can never attack it, and on g5 I'll take. Still on my quest of bringing the king. Yeah, so he's gonna do b4 like I predicted, and I'll have to take and play rook a7. Which I'm actually very happy about. I'm just super happy about that. How happy? I don't know. Imagine your kid goes to the university that you planned when he was born. Kind of that happy. I'm gonna be very happy if we get that. But okay, king there, rook there. Okay, what the fuck should I be playing for? I have no time. I think we switched the weakness, honestly. Like rook h1 and h5, maybe rook h2. Bishop g5. Okay, somebody's clever. I'm gonna do bishop e5, activate. b4 still, it's not a good move because I get to activate. How do I open him up? Maybe f4 is an idea now. ef, king f3. I feel like I should be opening up this side of the board because he controls the queen side really well. But I obviously have only 30 seconds left on the clock. So it is not clear at all what, how, and why I should be doing, but you guys will have to trust your boy on this one. Okay, I think he should en passant, because if he doesn't en passant, I kind of got a free move and I have g4 break. Still, it's all a cat and mouse game that b4 is not a good move because I can take and then even rook a5. The problem though, my king is also getting kind of exposed. Very tricky. Maybe bishop f6 also not too bad. Yeah, I should just play fast, kind of like no matter what happens. Bishop f6, I probably want to take. Although I kind of like the idea of getting a pawn on e5, a protected passed pawn. I kind of like that idea. So I just played rook h3. Still b4 I want to take to open up my rook. Okay, g4, gotta open it up. Gotta open it up. I'm using a little bit of a tactical trick. fg, I have rook g1 and rook h4, winning back the pawn on rook g6. And now we should be winning. I've got 2 connected passers, but only 20 seconds. Now we should, yeah, actually be completely winning. I would estimate. g3 is irrelevant. I can just keep chasing the pawn down the board. So takes. I think I'm gonna go a, b next and then king d2 just to kind of limit the counterplay. He's gonna take and play rook a4, I expect, but I'm hoping that f5 is enough? Question mark. Oh, he played passive rook c8. That was, I mean, not ideal. Okay, h5, he's too slow. Now I get to swap the rook at least. Or at least, yeah, I mean, my pawns are gonna be very fast. I'm gonna be having multiple mate frats. So now this is a thing. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm threatening rook g7, e7, and what? Unclear what my threat is. Okay, queen endgame should be won because I have the tempo, but I haven't calculated. Maybe I get to trade his queen by force. Yeah, we're lucky with that. I get to win his queen, which I did not calculate, but I went with the flow of the game. 8 seconds left. Should be able to remove this rather easily, but I mean, this definitely came down to the endgame phase. It was always kind of in the driver's seat, but he did make it easier at some point. Okay, can I like not choke the mate with 2 queens? Okay, nice. Opponent resigns. Okay, critical winning move was g4 in that time scramble. If I don't play g4, then it's gonna be very hard to do anything. Yeah, so king g7, you can see by the computer eval as well. Once I get the two connected passers rolling, it should be relatively free win. Also, I specifically wanted to take with a d pawn so that once the g4 break happens, I would have these connected pawns. That was the idea behind it, because normally, you'd be tempted to take towards the center. But that felt like it gave his king room for activity, which is the main reason why I declined to play this during the game, which I think honestly was a very good practical thing. Thanks everybody for making this far into the video, and very important stuff. Please let me know in the comments, how do you feel about the current state of the rating climb? Let me know if you'd want me to still push it in this kind of higher elo games. We can try to get it up to like 24, 2500, or if you want to get back to the kind of old videos playing against low rated guys, let me know in the comments. I'd really love to hear your feedback. And in case you want to stay in touch with my upcoming course, alexbanzia.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the channel. Have a good one.